a program that will generate a QR code for a given text. So let's get started. So let me quickly create the project directory and let me open it with VS Code. Okay, now let me create an HTML file. This would be done entirely with client side JavaScript. We are not going to use any sort of servers. So, I wanted to make this as simple as possible. So yeah, let's quickly get a HTML document. And you can open it with a live server. This is something that you can download from the packages in VS Code. This is very useful, which essentially allows you to live reload the HTML page that you're currently working on. So let's open it with live server. So yeah, it's working fine, and whenever we make a test and save it, it will automatically reload to reflect the changes. So let's get started. Now let's quickly create an input box. And a button which says generate QR code. So the idea is I'll type some text into this, and when I click generate QR code, a QR code will be generated for the given text. So let's first add in semantic UI to make it look a little good. So if I scroll down, I can find the minified version of the entire semantic code CSS. So here it is. So let me copy the link tag and let me paste it in. So for this project, we will be using a library called as node QR code. So this is the npm thing, and we will be using the compiled version for this because we are not going to use any bundler tools like Webpack or Parcel. We will be just using a pre-compiled version, a single file to make this as simple as possible. So in order to get the files, you can get the file in many ways, but one simple solution is run npm install QR code. So if you run this, it's currently running. So once you run this, you get a node modules folder, and if you go inside this node modules folder, you can find a package called QR code. Yeah, here it is. And within this QR code, there is something called build. So this QR code min.js is what we need. So let me quickly copy this and paste it here. Now we no longer need the node modules folder, so we can go ahead and delete it. So yeah, now let's include the script QR code dot min.js. So let us run to check if we get any errors. No, so that means the script is getting loaded as we require it to. Yeah. So now let's create the JavaScript file where we'll be writing the logic to use this library function to generate the QR code. So let's go ahead and do it. So I call this file index.js, and let me quickly create it. And let's console log to check whether it's getting loaded. Yeah, it's working fine. So now let's add in the semantic UI classes to make this look a little neat. So what I'll do is, for the input, we can add a div and place this input field within the div, and we can give it a class of UI input. These are semantic UI classes. You can take a look at the documentation to know more. And yeah, now it looks a little neat. And for the button, similarly, we'll give it a class of UI primary button. Yeah, now it's much better than what our browser gave us. Okay, now let's start to write our main logic. So let me go into index.js and quickly delete this line. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a function called genQR that will take in a string and it will generate the QR code. So the logic is once we type anything here and click the button, this function should be called, and what we have typed inside this text box should be taken. So let's first do it. So let me apply some basic DOM functions to get a hold of the input box. I can select it just as input because we have only one input field, and let me grab the value of it. Now if I console log str, we don't need it. Yeah, now if I console log str, I should get okay, I haven't called the function yet, so let me call the function. So within this button, whenever this button is clicked, we call in the function. So the function can be called as gen QR. So yeah, now let's try it out. Yeah, perfect, it's working fine. Now let's use the library that we get. So as soon as we import this JavaScript file, we get a variable called a QR, object called a QR code in the window level, so we can access it anywhere within our HTML file. So now let's take the object. We will be calling a function called toCanvas from the QR code library. So this thing, it takes 3 parameters. The first one is where the QR code will be generated. So in our case, we'll be generating a QR code within a canvas. So let's create the canvas. So I created a canvas, and let me give it an ID of canvas. So now we select the canvas through document.querySelector #canvas, and the second parameter is a string that needs to be encoded to QR format. So this is the string, and the third is a callback function that gets executed when things complete. So the callback function takes error as a parameter. So if we get an error, we console log it. Yeah, I made a small typo. This is a regular function. So if we get an error, we console log it, or else we print in done. So now let's test it out, and yeah, perfect. As you can see, we are getting the QR code as we require, and to make it look a little good, let's add some basic styling. So I create a file called style.css, where we'll be adding some custom styles. So let's restructure a document a little bit in order to properly add some styles. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a container, and we'll be placing the entire thing within a container. And we'll be creating a div to hold both the input tags and the buttons. So now we can apply a styling. So we select the container and we use flexbox. And yeah, now it looks a lot better, and let's test it out. Yeah, it's working fine. So you can type in any text you want, and the respective QR code will be generated. In order to test this, you can take your phone and try scanning this code with any QR code app, and you'll get the text that you had typed in here. So we can also use this to encode URLs. So that would be an easier way of sharing URLs. So yeah, as you can see, depending upon the size of the text, the size of the QR code too can vary.